Star Wars loves to leave open-ended plot holes in their movies. Is it because the people making these movies are just pure geniuses, or are they just kind of simply making it up and forgetting stuff along the way? I don't know at this point. But I am here to answer 3 of the biggest questions in Star Wars lore history, and I also intend on not wasting any time, so let's get started. Did Darth Sidious influence Anakin's nightmares? Force users having premonitions, or what it's so called in the universe as Force visions, isn't anything unheard of for a Jedi. Yoda had them, Sifo Dyas had them, and even Darth Maul had one, which for a brief overgeneralization led to the Civil War of Mandalore. However, Anakin is easily the strongest when it comes to this specific Force ability, because not only did he foresee the death of his mother, but also that of his wife. Or so he thought. When it comes to the relationship between Anakin and Palpatine, things can get confusing. In Legends, Palpatine's master, Darth Plagueis, accidentally created Anakin by the Force reacting to Darth Plagueis trying to manipulate the midichlorians to, create his own life. And because of that, Plagueis was terrified of this Force child, which made him put a blind eye to the whole situation, and Palpatine was able to take advantage of that, and then Sidious killed Plagueis, and blah 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 blah. And in an early draft of Revenge of the Sith, during the whole monologue when Sidious was like,
"Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader,"
Palpatine kind of came out and said like, yo, basically, if you look at it kind of this way, I'm your dad. And that's an exact quote. However, none of that is canon, so we kind of just have to ignore it. But either way, what am I rambling about? What does this specifically have to do with Darth Sidious' influences on Anakin's dreams? In episode 2, Anakin has a Force dream of her mother screaming for him. Now, although we don't get to see anything, we just hear the audio of it. We hear Shmi yell out his son's name, but by the time he arrives, the vision he had in his dream had already occurred, and so by the time he found her, she was exhausted and eventually passed on. Now, this is where things get a little bit iffy, because Anakin's next Force vision, that of Padme dying, we actually got to see. And not only do we get to see the dream he had, but we also get to see what actually happened. And somehow they're different. In the vision, Padme pleads for Anakin, but in actuality, she doesn't say a word for him. The same goes for the second vision, where he has one of Obi-Wan. So this is where fans can't really seem to agree. Some people believe that the small inaccuracies of the vision compared to what actually happened is because Palpatine is guiding his visions. From his previous visions with his mom, of which Palpatine knows about, like he knows those happened, Anakin confided in him, Sidious knows how easily Anakin can be emotionally manipulated. And adding on to this, when Palpatine eventually reveals himself as a Sith,
learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you will be able to save your wife from certain death.
What did you say?
He reveals that he knows that Anakin thinks Padme's in danger. And like, how would he know that if he never talked to Anakin about that specific dream? And although tampering with dreams isn't necessarily a Force power that Palpatine has been proven to have, this guy is the most powerful Sith of all time, and somehow he was able to conceal all his identity in front of literally every Jedi. Palpatine manipulating Anakin over to the dark side by knowing that he will do anything to protect the ones that he loves is genius in and of itself. But if he went into his dreams and planted those fears, that would just be on a whole nother level. But to be clear, there is not 100% proof. There is not solid evidence to prove that Palpatine actually went inside Anakin's head. However, I am totally on the side of Palpatine did in fact do that, and here's why. There's one piece of information that I've excluded from me explaining this. Before Sidious outs himself, Anakin walks in and he has a chat with him in like the whole alien gospel building. I don't know, it's sick, but I don't know what it is. But during that, Anakin is told by Sidious about Darth Plagueis. There is no reason why Anakin would be told this story unless Palpatine knew for a 100% fact that Anakin was legitimately nervous that he was going to lose Padme, or one of his loved ones. This is big information to Palpatine to just drop, and if he was going to do it out on a limb, just on a guess, I don't think that sounds like him. Because at this time, although Anakin was suspicious of the Jedi Council, he was still loyal. And if Anakin hadn't have had those dreams, he would have been much more suspicious as to why Palpatine was telling him this instead of, being actually interested. Alright, but that's just me. Save your questions for now. It's time to move on to question number 2, of which required a lot more research, and in my opinion, is a lot more sound. How did Maz Kanata get Luke's lightsaber? This is a question fans have had since The Force Awakens premiered in theaters, and it was never even close to being answered. So I will instead. Maz Kanata is over 1,000 years old. She has been through every evolution of what we've seen in Star Wars on screen so far. But surprisingly, not a lot is known about her. But one thing we do know is that she was present on the Battle of Yavin, which takes place in episode 4. Additionally, we know she's a pirate, a smuggler, and is also Force sensitive. She's not like a Jedi, but she has a feeling and knowledge of the Force. Okay, so now we're gonna go deep into theorizing, so just stay with me. Lando Calrissian became the ruler of Cloud City essentially by winning big on a gambling game. And it wouldn't be surprising if he offered Maz a place to stay in his kingdom, because he became the ruler of Cloud City like essentially a couple months after that. And we know the Empire was definitely looking for her, because not only was she in the Battle of Yavin a proven rebel, but she's also Force sensitive. It was never confirmed whether or not canonically Maz Maz and Lando ever met each other. However, given the fact that they were both infamous smugglers at the time, I'm sure they knew each other in passing at least. So it's not ridiculous to assume they had some sort of relationship, let alone that in Force Awakens it's confirmed that Maz knows Han Solo, Luke, everybody. Additionally, this is about to get nerdy, but stay with me. If we take a look at the Star Wars map, travel from Yavin to Bespin, which is the planet that Cloud City is located on, would be a pretty easy ride. Taking the Hydian Way and then splitting off into the Nothoing Corridor, probably pronounced as wrong, but sorry. It would take, from my educated guess, like a week of travel, which isn't uncalled for Star Wars. And if she was hiding out on Cloud City, not only would she be protected by the ruler of the city, but it's also essentially across the entire galaxy. And the Empire wouldn't honestly even think to search there. But that still doesn't answer a big question. If we accept that Maz could have been on Cloud City during the events of Empire, where Luke gets his hand cut off and loses his saber, that still doesn't explain how Maz actually got a hold of it. However, in a recent release comic book simply titled Star Wars #2, we learn that a Force user, which given by the blue bubble seems to be some sort of ghost entity, reaches out to Luke with the lightsaber and says, "Follow your destiny." And so since he got that vision, Luke spends a good amount of time on Cloud City after the events of Empire looking for this lightsaber. But then he feels through the Force that Leia is in trouble, and so he abandons this journey of finding his old lightsaber because he's like, you know what, it's not the weapon that makes a soldier, it's their mentality or something like that. And then he boots off. But then literally right after that, one of these suits finds a lightsaber in the rubble. And canonically speaking, because this comic book is canon, we don't know what happened after that, but we just know that by Force Awakens, Maz has a lightsaber. So, what my main theory is that same being that wanted Luke to reclaim his lightsaber, instead, once Luke left the planet, reached out to Maz instead and was like, hey, you need to find this and you need to keep care of it for whenever somebody needs it. And that's what she did, because this non-Force sensitive being found it, and then she somehow was able to reach out and figure out where he was and grabbed it. And how that creature and Maz eventually traded the lightsaber, we don't really know. We don't know. We don't even know. This is all hypothetical, but it's most likely what happened. Oh, and who the Force being is, I don't know. I hope it's Obi-Wan, which wouldn't make much sense, but I hope it's Obi-Wan. Alright, on to the last question. Why wasn't Anakin's lightsaber red at the end of Revenge of the Sith? This might be the messiest question out of the three because technically there are three correct answers. So the first answer is what all Star Wars nerds were led to believe up until Disney bought out Lucasfilms and made it all non-canon, or what they now call legends. But in this legend story, a red lightsaber isn't a naturally occurring kyber crystal. To get the iconic red glow, what Siths need to do is put it in like a super furnace for a hot minute, and then mold it with the power of the Force for it to get its color. Now this process could take weeks to accomplish, and they wouldn't have enough time to give Anakin his own because the events of Order 66 and the battle on Mustafar occur in like the same 24 hours. In the non-canon books, Anakin, or should I say Vader, eventually gets his red lightsaber a couple weeks after the events on Mustafar. But it just doesn't necessarily make sense to me as to why Sidious wouldn't have a red lightsaber crystal on standby when Anakin would eventually turn. I think on a marketing sense, Sidious kind of dropped the ball on that one, because Sidious with the blue blade doesn't really make much sense now, does it? Sorry. Oh, calm down, Harlan. Now the canon version as to why Anakin doesn't have a red lightsaber is much more lame. The now canon way that Siths get their iconic red lightsaber crystals is by taking a regular kyber crystal and then quote-unquote bleeding it by using the dark side. And for Anakin / Vader, this process took a long time considering he was still battling his desire to feel towards the light side and the dark side because, you know, he's the chosen one. And so we know for a fact that he just simply would not have had time to do this process during the events of Order 66 and Revenge of the Sith. And honestly, it kind of makes a little bit more sense because he had to do it himself. Sidious couldn't just, you know, flick one over to him. Now, the real reason as to why Anakin does not have a red lightsaber in Revenge of the Sith doesn't look as cool. In early marketing posters, Anakin can be seen with a red lightsaber. And considering the lightsabers in this movie were done 100% in post-production, just simply changing the lights of the lightsabers isn't that hard of a VFX change, and with the background being so much orange and red, it just wouldn't have looked as nice. In my opinion, it was just a quick, easy fix they did while shooting in post-production, and George Lucas just kind of figured like, hey, you know what? I kind of like the blue. Now that I think about it, a scene of Anakin getting his red lightsaber would just kind of hurt the pacing of this all, which is kind of the lamest one, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what happened. Alright, but those are my 3 Star Wars questions. What did you guys think about them? Was I way off? Do you agree? Is there so much more that I could be adding to this? If so, go ahead, tell me what I should add in the comments down below. I absolutely adore talking about this stuff, so I'll be paying attention to them. This is all good fun. We're just having a fun old time. If you like my content, please go ahead and subscribe for more. I'm trying to put a lot more work into this. Alright, that's all for today. Subscribe for more.